Hi, welcome to Punchline Talks, the business breakfast briefers. My name is Mark Owen, and each week I invite a panel of business experts and civic leaders to review the morning newspapers, find out what's happened in their own individual business and their own individual business sectors, and finally, what's caught their eye in this week's Punchline. But before I start, I'd just like to thank our fantastic sponsors, Hazelwood's Business Accountants and Advisors, and from them today we have our very own Glen Collingbourne as well, but we'll come to here in a second. So big thanks to them. If you like the show, please like, share and subscribe. Okay, let's meet the panel. Today we've got Martin Hughes. He's the CEO of Sands Academies Trust, covering 6 schools, 556 staff, 897 pupils. So we'll find all about that. And he used to belong Chief Executive of Lillian Trust. So from one spectrum down to the other, as in age group. Thanks. Great to see you again, Martin. We have Enzo Mora, CEO of a mortgage brain. The company has over 110 staff, a turnover of 6 million, and we're finding out from him all about the sort of mortgage and the housing market and how that's moving as well. So big thanks to Enzo joining us. And we have Ori Hellerstein. He's the owner and founder of the Artisan Bakery, who opened the bakery in Stroud in 2012. And he's just stepped away from the limelight of Channel 4's television series, A Cotswold Farm Shop. Okay, big welcome to him. And finally, last but never least, we've got Glen Collingbourne, Director of Hazelwood's Business Advisor and Accountants, and Glen is our tax guru. That's it. So welcome all to the show. Right, okay, we're just going to see what's making the headlines, courtesy of the BBC. So the Metro, M-Way chaos in hunt for terror spy. It's a real mixed bag today, by the way. Financial Times, pension poised for fresh jump as triple lock matches wage growth. The Eye, fugitive terrorist suspects escape investigated as possible prison inside job. The Star, Doddy didn't become a ghost, did he? Said the Star. The Guardian, escape of terrorist suspect prompts prison cuts row. The Mirror, thank you for your love. Who would have thought it's a year ago already that the Queen passed away? And the Times, baby deaths cover up investigated by the police. The Daily Mail, warning royal brothers still 100 miles apart. Warring brothers, not warning, royal rift. The Telegraph, PM refuses India's plea for visas in trade talks. And that's it. A real mixed bag today. So let's start with you, Martin. What have you picked out from us, please, sir?
2 stories, really, mainly in education, as that's my new sector. So the first one, if we can see that, it's in the Guardian. Ofsted are paying particular attention after COVID on children's attendance in school. It's a big focus where they're looking at persistent absence, how you challenge it, and getting kids back into the classroom. And in Japan, as you can imagine, they're always a bit ahead of the curve. They've decided to use robots in the classroom and for home learning to persuade children that coming to school is a really good idea. It's proven attendance increases reading, writing, and better results. So it'll be interesting to see what we do in this country around encouraging kids to come to school.
This is a massive problem, isn't it? It's a massive problem in this country.
Since COVID, it's a really big focus for Ofsted. They're looking at persistent absence, and it has been increasing. And we're doing all we can at Sands to make sure we get our kids in school every single day and see what we can do to help parents and carers and their guardians encourage kids to get in and learn.
Now, these robots, are they the little white round robots? Are they on wheels? Are they kind of
they're little white robots with iPads in them, and they talk to the kids and tell them how great school is. And they're just doing everything they can to get kids back to the classroom.
I can't imagine a robot being made of me rather than make one with a little pot belly and bad. Anyway, let's move on. Right, Enzo, thanks so much for that, Martin.
You're welcome.
Enzo, what have you picked out for us, please?
Good morning, Mark. With the World Cup starting this evening, I've just picked an article in the Times online, so I can't show it to you, but they have a World Cup 2023 predictor, and you can select the order of the groups, who you think is going to come where. And I'll just pick out an interesting quarter final that I've got between England and Wales. and I've selected Wales to win that one, through to a final that will be Ireland versus France.
Wow. Okay. You can see that really happening. So are you a big rugby fan then, mate?
Well, I'm from Gloucester, so reasonably big fan.
Okay, I'm going to ask the panel then. I'm going to go around the panel very quickly if you're into rugby or not. Who is going to win? I'm going to write it down. I'm going to come back to you another day. So, Enzo, who do you reckon is going to win the Rugby World Cup? Very quickly, everybody.
Ireland.
Ireland. Okay. Martin.
I'd love it to be Wales, obviously, but I think France.
France. Okay. Glen.
Well, I'd agree with Enzo, but to be different, I'll say Australia.
Australia. Okay.
Yeah.
And Ori.
I have no idea what's going on in rugby, so I'll just say
Israel, obviously.
just say Wales, mate. It's going to be a Wales final. I'm going to put 100 quid on them like I normally do. But there we go. Any other stories there, Ori? Enzo, anything else caught your eye?
No, sorry, I've let you down, Mark.
Don't worry. Okay, let's go over to you, Ori. What have you picked out from the papers, please?
So I'm a big fan of yoga, and I just found this hilarious story on the Guardians. It's on page 3. There was a yoga class last night on the Lancashire coast, and as you all know, after a yoga class, there is the Shavasana corpse pose that you're supposed to relax, let the body absorb all the exercise you've done, and you do that for around 5. Yeah, that's right. That's the page. 5 to 10 minutes. Anyway, someone passed by, saw them from the window, and called the police, saying there is a mass murdering in the building. And the police swept in, and obviously it was a big misunderstanding. But I thought it's a very funny story to start the day.
It's funny you should mention that, because another story in the papers where obviously we've got the ex-military chap running around, escaped from the prison, and they arrested somebody else. They thought it was him as a lookalike chap, and they caught him at a railway station and handcuffed him for like 20 minutes. He did see the funny side of it, actually. But anyway, right, thanks for that, Ori. Right, we go over to Glen. Glen, what have we picked out from the papers? I know you've got a couple there.
Yeah, so I've done what I've normally done, which I'll just pick something quick for each one. And you had this on the screen just now. Your digital copy was better, but I just enjoyed this picture here, which is I'm assuming taken by drone, which is on top of Parliament Hill, Lido. It's lots of people trying to cool down in London because it's thought that it's provisionally the hottest day of the year. 32.6 degrees in Surrey. I just genuinely enjoyed that picture. Isn't that interesting? And we've all seen it floods in the traditional holiday resorts around Europe at the moment, and obviously it's absolutely boiling in the UK. So typical weather chaos. This is just a quick one, just to shows how things are changing. So EU courts lift sanctions on Russian tycoons. So the EU perhaps thinking that maybe the original plan to ban all Russian business isn't necessarily as it should be, and obviously reviewing how they're going to deal with that in the future. And this one, this is quite good, the timing, because I'm pretty sure I've spoken about this before on this very show, which is the headline is 2 billion to rejoin EU science project. You see, so when we're part of the EU, we all collaborated in a huge scientific pool and put in money and did an enormous amount of really good research. Well, when we left the European Union, we immediately left that pool. And initially, Rishi Sunak was saying, well, that's okay, look, because we can do what we do everything on our own, don't we? So we'll go ahead and plow forwards and do our own scientific research. The science community said straight away, that's ridiculous. We haven't got anything like the resources to be able to do that. And now, so this is good news. Well, this is from the Daily Mail. I should have said that. And maybe that headline is meant to shock you. I think that's actually really good news, because that's us collaborating with our European colleagues to be able to take science forward.
And it kind of makes common sense, if you ask me, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Why not? Okay, well, thanks ever so much for that collection. Guys, is there any of you got any other quick stories for the papers? Martin, I kind of cut you short, by the way. I meant to apologise.
No, that's quite right. There's only one other story which is in the news all the time, which is the reinforced aerated autoclave concrete rack in schools. Interestingly, there's only one school in Gloucestershire that suffers with that. None of our schools, thankfully, but it just goes to show that some of these buildings that we've inherited from the local authority, they do need an awful lot of investment. And when schools become part of an academy, this is where you can get access to different funding streams to improve your buildings. So it's a bit of a lesson in academisation, really, is that if you join an academy, there is an option to improve your buildings and not get stuck with some of these problems that local authority funded schools are having.
I mean, it must be a nightmare when this news first broke and you're sitting at home thinking, "Oh my God." You know, or did you know about it beforehand?
We were very fortunate that in the trust during March and April, we'd already instigated full structural surveys on all our buildings for different reasons, but we wanted to see what condition they were in. So we knew March, April, we didn't have this type of concrete. So for us and our head teachers, we were able to get a message out to all the parents before term and said, get your kids into school, we're all fine.
So is Gillian Keegan right to say some of these schools should have got off their backside and done something of it sooner?
The
or
trouble
is they can down the road a bit too much?
It depends, really. If you're part of an academy, you're in control of your own destiny. We can do what we want when we want. So we instigated the survey ourselves. If you're a maintained school, it's a little more tricky because you're at the behest of the local authority. So it's a bit more challenging for them.
Right. Okay. Well, it's been very fascinating watching it, but I think all of us who don't have kids are probably sick and tired of it, worried about our other infrastructures. Really, that's the big thing, isn't it? There was a story the other day about all our bridges may fall down. Anyway, okay. Well, let's go over to their own individual business sectors. Actually, I'm going to go to, because you've just been on, Martin. I'm going to go over to you, Enzo. Let's quickly talk about the mortgage housing market. I've got some friends. I have got some friends. I know it might be hard to believe, but I've got some friends who are estate agents who are as popular as reporters. I know that much. Estate agents are telling me that the housing market has slowed down. It seems the mortgage costs going up seems to be having a knock-on effect. What's your take on it, Enzo? I mean, you've got your mortgage brain advisors out there. What's your take on the marketplace at the moment?
It is quieter, but I put that down to a summer holiday lull, and what we are noticing already is that an increase in inquiries as we are now coming out the back end of that summer holiday period. So I'm hoping that the quiet period is over and we're going to enter the last quarter of this year and it's going to get busier.
Now, the reports in I think it was nationwide saying that house prices have gone down like 14% or something. Does that have a massive effect to your guys who are servicing the mortgages and things like that with the sort of new deals that are coming on board?
Well, interest rates have been hot topics this year, and the Bank of England have kept increasing over the months. But we have found that lenders are dropping the rates of deals that are on offer. So lenders overprice their rates early on, expecting the Bank of England's rate to be a bit higher. So we've heard that inflation's on its way down. So I'm optimistic about this last quarter of this year and things getting busier. There's still a huge demand for property.
I mean, that is it, isn't it? The housing market squeeze. They keep saying here that we just don't have enough houses, but we seem to be building everywhere. You must be, every time a new housing estate of 2,750 houses being built here and another 5,000 there, you must be going, "Ooh, that's quite nice."
Well, as you know, we work with national developers, so we get our fair share of arranging mortgages on new build developments. So yeah, I'm quite keen to see them building.
Yeah, who are some of the guys that you work with? You want to flag them up because obviously they're blue chip companies, aren't they?
Yeah, Barrett, David Wilson, Redrow, Bloor Homes, and a number of others. I think there's about 20 developers that we work with.
Wow. Okay. And how does it actually work then? So they recommend you for people to come for a mortgage for you, or?
Yeah, we help their customers purchase their homes by giving them advice on their mortgages.
Right. Okay. So, anyways, it's a fascinating thing at the moment. We just hope that the interest rates go down because it's having a massive effect on the hospitality sector and all our sectors, isn't it? Really, which bores us very, very nicely. Thanks ever so much for that, Enzo. I'm going to go over to you, Ori, because you're in the hospitality sector. Cost of, goodness, running a bakery, the cost of energy must have gone through the roof for someone like yourself. What's happening there for you?
Yes, it's been a real challenge this year. We see cost rising about 3-4 times than the year before. Yeah, very, very challenging. And I speak to a lot of people in the industry. We're all working more, but there's less profit coming in because of those issues. So really challenging. I can't wait to finish the contract I'm in. And yeah, still some time to go though.
Exactly. So anyway, so how is the business going at the moment? Because obviously, you know, you're selling a product, it's a premium product, you know, and you've got to get a good markup on it. Are sales still very good? I mean, how many rolls do you make a day? How many croissants? What sort of volume are we talking about?
Oh wow, a big volume. We since last year we turn over now probably 3 times more than what we did, and it's by the hundreds of pastries. We have few range of products. The one that on the Channel 4 show is focused on the vegan range that we do. So we do hundreds of them a day, and obviously it's busier towards the weekend, which yeah, it's really flat out at the bakery.
So how did you find out about being on Channel 4 and were the camera crew there the whole time? Was it a couple of weeks? What was the score there?
So the show was filmed last year, exactly last year, and they spent about 4 days with us. I think it's good that it was last year and not now, because there wouldn't be space for them at all. It's just so manic, especially after the show. We saw quite a huge spike in orders, which is great. But then at the food industry, there's so many challenges kind of get thrown at you. You mentioned the energy crisis, but there's also another one which is as severe as the other is staffing, which is really difficult to find good people. So it's a constant battle to get. Now we need to recruit some more people, and yeah, it's just very hard to find.
I mean, not being funny, you guys are up very early in the morning. What time do you sort of start your bakery? Is it one of these ones at 4 o'clock, 3:30?
A bit before. So 3 a.m. start. The team starts, and at the weekend it's even 1:30, 2 o'clock. They start. It's just the volumes are too big, and also it's such a short shelf life product because it's all handmade. We don't use any preservatives or provers or anything that enhance the shelf life that you can find in the supermarket. Then everything needs to be baked as closer to the delivery time as possible, so the customer can enjoy the product in its best quality.
And what is your best-selling product, sorry?
At the moment, the vegan pastries are just flying out of the roof. They're so good. If you saw the show, I spoke about it. If I gave you like a blind taste, you wouldn't know which one is with dairy butter and which one is with vegan butter. They're so good, and the texture is the same. The flakiness of the pastry is the same. It's very delicious.
Right. Okay. And that's episode 4, wasn't it?
Yes, episode
Okay.
4. You can catch it online if you missed it. It's on Channel 4 online, A Cotswold Farm Shop.
Well, I was in Lundy Island when that aired, so I look forward to catching that one very, very shortly. So thanks ever so much for that, Ori, for filling this in. Okay, we're going to go over to you, Glen. Glen, let's talk about sort of your marketplace, obviously, because you Hazelwood's works right across the board. Different surveys and things are coming across my desk about the marketplace as a whole. How's it for you guys? There was talk about insolvencies going up. There was talk about it's a difficult period. Is it stabilizing?
Well, that's it is obviously a difficult question, and I think it's because you're also going to have to look across sectors. So you can't just probably broad brush say it's difficult across the way, because what we've just heard about Ori's brilliant success there. So there is definitely success out there. That I still think we're in an area where what's happening. I can't think of a better expression than to say it's kind of separating the wheat from the chaff. And I don't mean any disrespect to any businesses that have struggled. It's just that those businesses were probably in a position where things were a little bit on a bit of a balance. And then what we've got now is the balance has tipped, because it was always a bit fragile and now it's tipped. And so some of the businesses that are unfortunately not doing as well is as a result of the fact that they probably had problems all along. But because prior to all sorts of events, including Brexit and pandemic and whatever, they were probably buoyed by quite good success, which was always going to be relatively short-lived, or they were coming to the end of an industry that was on its way out, generally because it's being replaced by other factors or other types of business. And so to be able to say that it's difficult out there for people is correct, particularly because of energy prices, as we've just heard. That isn't to say that every business is struggling, and there are certainly some businesses out there really successful. One area that I'm just going to do a little cheeky thing and say we operate in specialisms. Food and drink's one of our specialisms, Ori. Just saying it, just in case you're ever interested. So we work in specialisms. My specialism's taxation. Something that I've seen a lot of recently, and this is more on so for employers is actually seeing a lot more interest in either recruiting individuals from overseas to come and work in the UK because they've got a certain skill set, or alternatively, because of this whole home working thing, which has obviously affected many businesses where such a thing is possible, is people who are actually saying, well, I was born and raised in Italy. I'll be honest, I could do my job back in Italy. So can I just go and move back home with my family and live there? And so we're seeing a lot more inquiries around that side of things. And where it's become more difficult than it used to is, I referred to it earlier on, we left the European Union. Now, there used to be a time when all that sort of thing was dead easy. It's not as easy as it used to be. In my case of an Italian national going back to Italy, yeah, sure, they can go back home and work there. But if alternatively it was a British national and they were saying, well, I want to go and live in Italy because that's where my wife's family are from, or because I've always wanted to live in Italy, you can't just roll up and start working like you used to be able to. You need a visa. You might need a work permit. There's a lot of other factors, not just taxation that we used to have to talk about. There's a lot more. And so I suppose what I'm concluding there is, your question about how's the economy going, how are we seeing it? That's an example of actually it going quite well, because we're able to recruit from overseas and send people to work overseas. So there's plenty of business out there, but it does need to be in the right sector, and it needs to be dealt with correctly.
But I hear most businesses want people back in the office. Lloyd's, we wrote the other day that Lloyd's are desperate to get everybody, that they're actually copying people coming in and out. Not just them, but all the big banks are doing it, because it doesn't work so well. I mean, we work from home, but it's a different kind of business.
Yeah, I suppose you've got two sides to that, haven't you? You've got businesses that will identify that actually if they have smaller offices, their overheads are way lower than they used to be. So if they only need enough office space for 50% of their workforce, because people want to work at home, or actually maybe slightly forced to work at home in those cases, they can actually save an enormous amount of money that way. And then you've got the other side, which you've quite rightly pointed out, is actually it can be quite difficult, particularly where you've got, particularly where you want to obviously work in actual teams. Yeah, we can do Teams and Zoom and that kind of thing. So there's no replacement for actually sitting around a table and having a conversation. And equally, obviously, I work in an office environment where if you just literally want to ask somebody a question, which is going to take 1 minute, then you don't want to be getting on the phone and you don't want to be organising a Teams call. Well, you could, previous to that, you could have just looked over and asked them the question and delegated work or whatever. So yeah, absolutely, there is quite a delicate balance. And at Hazelwoods, we've tried to embrace both. So we don't force people to work at home, but if they want to work at home, then we say you can do 2 days a week at home, but that's the maximum. Because what we're seeing as well, of course, is that how do people who are trying to learn, how do they learn things if they're just sat in their bedroom or in their dining room table or in their kitchen or little room like this? How do you learn from your colleagues, particularly if you're a graduate or school leaver? How do you learn how to talk to business people if you never actually hear other people doing it? So it's not just about learning the job, it's those soft skills like we're doing now, having a conversation and talking about topical matters.
Well, no, it's funny you should say that. It's very, very difficult. It draws us back over to Martin and education things. But before we do that, I just want to talk about there is a massive problem. I'd like to ask Enzo and Ori, because we know there's a big problem about recruitment in schools. Are you finding it difficult, Enzo, to recruit as Ori is as well? Is it the same type of thing, Enzo?
Well, we've been on a recruitment drive over the last month or so where we're looking for mortgage brokers across the country. But I have to say on this occasion, we've been really pleased with the responses and the number of inquiries that we've had. And recruiting for that particular position has been quite easy or easier. However, when it comes down to office staff, so back office staff here in Gloucester, we were looking for a mortgage administrator, and in the past they would put an advert in Gloss Jobs and get 20 CVs in, whereas now we have to go to recruitment firms and beg for CVs, and it's much tougher. So depending on the type of job for us.
Yeah, and I would imagine it's very difficult to find trained bakers like you do, Ori, and young people get up at 1:30 in the morning to rock up to work. I mean, I love that morning, but not everybody, not everybody's. It's not for everybody.
Yes, we find it extremely difficult to find people. Just example, this week I had 4 people were supposed to come for trials. After we had the initial chat conversation, no one showed up. They didn't even message to say, sorry, we changed our mind, it's not for us. So this is a very bizarre behavior that I'm not sure exactly what it is. And also just the point, after Brexit, the food industry lost about 400,000 people. They went back to different countries in Europe. So I think this hard work of waking up early, create something with your hands. It's kind of it's going unfortunately. I'm trying to figure out a different strategy of training young people. I think this is the way forward in trying to find skilled people, because they're just not existing.
Not there, are they? I just want to point out, by the way, you're not alone there, so please don't take it personally. I've heard of that story lots of times of people right across industries not turning up for interviews. We're a certain generation that we would never ever do that, But thanks for that, Ori. Martin,
I was just going to say, Mark, just in support of what you were saying, we had that actually ourselves. We recruited somebody at quite a senior level, and they literally didn't turn up for work the first day. And with it, there was just an email to say they weren't going to be arriving.
Yeah, and there you are with your drawer there, and you've got new pencils all sharpened, and and rubbers and rulers and hole punches and everything else like that. And they don't say no.
Nice abacus, shined up, ready.
Thanks so much, Martin. I'm really glad you come on the show, because obviously I've known you for quite some time and been over that fantastic job you did at Lillian Faithful. I mean, talk about how you really put care homes on the map. And here you are from one end of the spectrum, from dealing with the very elderly and the dying and the infirm, if you don't mind me saying, to the other end where you deal with young children. How did you find that change?
Yeah, it was different. What I would say is that I was a trustee of the Academy Trust when it formed in 2018-19. So I've always been involved in Sound Academies Trust. I did a lot at Lillian Faithful, and I felt that it was time to hand the reins over to somebody else. But in this sector, what really made it for me was I feel like I've been very fortunate in my life and my career, and I've had some good chances come my way. And I really thought I could make a difference in this sector. And if I can do my bit to give these nearly 900 children we're looking after some of the chances I've had, then that would make me very, very happy indeed. And it's a terrific sector to work in. We've got 6 schools, 5 special schools, 1 mainstream school in Cheltenham, Gloucester, Cirencester, Stroud, and it's just a wonderful opportunity, and I'm enjoying it immensely.
I hear through the grapevine it's actually the parents are the hardest thing to cope with than the kids. I know you've got to be careful what you say, but maybe you could tell us off camera. But
well, parents have high expectations, quite rightly, for their children's education and the way they're looked after in school, and there's nothing wrong with that. 2 of our schools are outstanding schools by Ofsted. That's the Milestone School, which people may know, and Belmont School. And the work they do with some of these young people is absolutely inspiring, and we're very, very fortunate. Touching on the recruitment thing, which, if I may, we were very fortunate, and this is part of being an Academy Trust. An Academy Trust is basically strength in numbers. You've got schools that collaborate, you work together, best practice training. By having a central support function that controls all this stuff, we started this term with no vacancies at all.
Wow.
But what it means is you've got to be innovative. You've got to think of lots of different ways to recruit people. You've got to make yourself an employer of choice. And we've got a fabulous HR team here that do that. But it is relentless, and it's an attritional, but you've got to be on top of it all the time. And it's highly unusual for 6 schools to start the year with not a single vacancy for a teacher, teaching assistant or learning partner. And we're very proud of that at the Academy.
I'm not surprised. Congratulations. Do you have to use recruitment agencies throughout the year? Because normally I hear they cost an absolute fortune to.
Not so much in education. What you're looking for is to make the choices an employer of choice. You look at the market, it's term time only for a lot of people, that helps. And you've got to be realistic around people's family commitments, around school hours, and the demographics of your workforce. But it's about being flexible, but still making sure the children get the support and education they need.
I love the employer of choice idea. What's the top tip they'd give then? Top tip for today? To become
top tip today,
employer of choice.
It's communication with your staff. You've got to keep them informed, and genuine, authentic leadership, so they know who you are and what the plans of the trust are. And word of mouth. If you look after your staff, you'll get people come through. Staff get staff schemes and work quite well for us. But that's the top tip: communication. Okay, top tip of the day. Thanks ever so much for that, Martin. Okay, we're going to flip over to the pick of the punchlines. Okay, from this week's punchlines, I was going to start with you, Ori. What have you picked out from this week's punchline stories, please?
Just as a food related, the Brewery Quarter celebrates Cheltenham Food and Drink Week, which I think it's a great initiative in Cheltenham. It's not just at the Brewery Quarter, it's across the whole town. And I just think it's fantastic to bring in families, people, get off their phones, come to a different establishment, try new food. Most businesses have a special offer of a £5 offer, £10 offer. Really depend what you are, if you're a restaurant, a coffee shop. So I think it's a really great week. Really looking forward to be part of it and get people to know our coffee shop in Cheltenham, which is in Imperial Gardens.
And you're going to be there yourself, Ori?
I'm hoping to. At the moment I'm juggling between the 2 locations, Stroud and Cheltenham. So I'll definitely be 1 to 2 days there for sure.
Well, you'd be signing autographs anyway. They say, "Hey, I've seen you on Channel 4." They'll be saying, "I've seen you on Punchline Business Breakfast Briefers." Anyway, thank you ever so much for that. Enzo, what have you picked out from this week's Punch, please?
Subject you brought up earlier, bank staff expected to go into the office, and your article on Lloyds Banking Group and their plans. And we work with all the banks, and we've noticed a huge difference in levels of service that we get in support of getting mortgage offers for clients. And I thought if we had the time, it'd be interesting to get other views on what they think about working from home or working in the office.
No, it's very true. No, thanks ever so much for that. They're desperate to get everybody back. Everybody I talk to, the bigger industries, all want people back in the office. They just can't get them back. That's the big problem. Glenn, back over to you. What's your pick of the punchlines, please?
So, pick of the punchline is your article on registering and monitoring ex-thoroughbred horses after they've retired from racing. Interestingly, I couldn't find that this morning, Mark. I saw it last night. I don't know if you had to take it off because it was a bit racy, if you forgive the pun. But I couldn't actually find it. The brief, wasn't it, was to what caught my interest. It caught my interest because clearly it's a local story. We have an equine specialism within Hazelwoods, and so it was interesting. And I think particularly that a lot of people who are against racing, possibly because of perceived cruelty, I think that will help establish that what happens to horses after, let's say, they've stopped being famous. And so what they're trying to do is monitor their health and what happens to them when they've basically retired, and checking that they're well looked after. And then the other reason it literally caught my interest is because the reason I have to catch a train is because I'm going to Ascot later, courtesy of SR Insurance for all your business insurance needs. So I'm getting looked after by then. So caught my attention for all of those reasons.
And this is how you plug yourself during the show, okay? I mean, Martin, thanks ever so much for that, Ben. Martin,
okay. I've got two very short ones. I was interested in the brand bonanza at Gloucester Quays, having 2 schools in Gloucester, the Milestone School, right in the centre of Gloucester in Long Levens, and Willow Primary Academy in Tuffley. Wonderful school if you ever get to go there. I thought that was interesting. Gloucester's on the up, having our head office here. I can see that. That was interesting. And also your little article about Alex Brown becoming chief exec of Gloucester Rugby. Gloucester doing very well in a really tough sector. And also he played for Pontypool, so he's got to be a good all-round, I think.
I'm trying to get a big interview with him, actually. I've contacted the gentleman quite a few times, but I'm still getting no answer. But I gather he's quite busy. Yeah. My pick of the punchlines this week has got to be the Going Deep Forest of Dean, is a story that we ran yesterday. £100 million subsea project that's going to be in Tiddenham, 50-acre underwater research and development facility right in the heart of the Forest of Dean, or the edge of the Forest of Dean. But my goodness, it's going to create 100 jobs. It's global research that could be groundbreaking moving forward, and it's all happening just in our old Forest of Dean, which is absolutely amazing. So we're going to keep a very, very close eye on that story. Well, what can I say? Thanks ever so much for my fantastic panel today. Thanks for joining us today. I'd like to thank our brilliant sponsors, Hazelwoods Accountants and Business Advisors, and I thank you all for watching as well. If you'd like the show, please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you again next week. But remember, it's all in the punchline. Bye.